Welcome in. What's Right with Nick Wright, episode 343. And this episode, as always, of What's Right with Nick Wright is brought to you by Boost Mobile. NBA season over. We got as good of a postseason as one could have asked for, as compelling of a finals as one could have asked for. And shout out to America for reminding the charlatans on social media, the go woke, go broke crowd, that it doesn't really matter who's in the NBA Finals. If it's a Game 7, people are going to watch. 16 million people watched Game 7 of the Finals on average, peaking near 20 million. I don't actually care that much about the rating stuff. I do care about some of the worst people on the internet being proven wrong, so I do enjoy that. The highest rated Finals since 2019, the last pre-COVID Finals. So great for the league, great for the Thunder. Tragic, but in a somewhat sports heroic way for Tyrese Haliburton and the Indiana Pacers. We will get to all of that in just a moment. Also, Kevin Durant has been traded. The NBA draft is tomorrow night. Programming note, we are going to be doing a live draft show during at least the lottery portion of the NBA draft. It will be somewhat on the prospects, more about the teams and the fits and all of that. That'll be fun tomorrow night. Also, programming note, regular show on Thursday, and then I am gone for about a week and a half, and then we'll be back shortly after the 4th of July. Right now, though, straight to voicemail brought to you by our friends at Boost Mobile. Isaiah Hartenstein's son sleeps through the trophy presentation, and shout out to Shai, protect the neck. Shai, support the head. Father Shai came over and was like, yo, bro, I really liked that. I thought that was an endearing moment by him. Shane Gillis to host the ESPYs. He is a guy that I have consumed none of his content, but people who have tell me he's quite funny. Okay, that's why everybody who's watches him likes him. I'm not that familiar with him. And big weekend in New York thanks to Michael Rubin's Fanatics Fest, so a lot of folks here, Bron, KD, Draymond, like all of the NBA royalty that was not in the finals was here in New York, and some autograph seekers were pretty annoying to Kevin Durant, and I don't really blame him for being, this isn't even the video that I thought it was. I thought there were a few of those videos, but we can get to those at another time. That's funny. They all threw stuff at him. I thought this was when he was walking down the street and people ran up on him. All right, reminder, please like, rate, subscribe, review. This is typically the time of year where subscriptions start to slow because July and August, we have vacation. There's not, huge sports going on. We will try. I have a strategy to not only have this be not where subscriptions slow and viewership drops, but where it pops and involves not even DeMonte's generation, but the generation beneath him, the Gen Z, the Zoomers, maybe Gen Alpha getting involved. We're going to have to clean up our language on that if that happens. We will debut that strategy sometime in July, but something that I never thought I would do, which is be like, hey, those Twitch streamers that got 30 million followers, maybe we should collab with them a little more often. So maybe that'll come this summer. But DeMonte, great to see you. I like that shirt. You look great.
You, Thank you.
The NBA season is over, and the best team all year won the championship. Go right ahead.
So the Thunder ended up winning that game. It was a little weird though. Weird Game 7. Yeah. Is this more about OKC winning, or is this more about Haliburton getting injured there?
So
it looked a certain type of way.
What do you mean? Like
it
looked like
a certain type of way
in
the beginning. 100%.
In the beginning, but so here's why the Haliburton story will resonate for years. Haliburton will become the new go-to name for a guy who plays through injury, and we'll get to this more when we talk, but I do want to mostly talk about OKC off the top. But this is what I'll say about Haliburton quickly. Risk means risk. And, if they're if you are tightrope walking on a harness with a net beneath you, you're not tightrope walking. And for Tyrese Haliburton, one of the reasons what he did was so admirable from a sports perspective and from a team perspective was because this was possible. And he now, and I thought Brew made a really good point, which is people are looking at it from what this injury could mean for the rest of his career. And Brew's point was what not playing in those games could have meant for him psychologically for the rest of his career could be a totally different type of career-altering incident. And so Tyrese Haliburton took a major risk. We'll talk, and obviously paid the price for it.
We will talk more.
Right, it will always be an iconic image in a terrible way, but his name will be synonymous with putting it all on the line for your team for a chance at the ultimate glory. Where I do not necessarily agree with what it seems like, DeMonze, you were, I don't want to say implying, but hinting at, is just because the Pacers looked really good early, and just because they were up 1 at halftime despite Haliburton's injury, I am not ready to say that that means, clearly, had he not gotten hurt, they would have won. Now, it is clear, had he not gotten hurt, they could have won. But the thing is, even with him hurt, they could have won. They were up 1 at halftime, and they were down 4 with 3.5 minutes left in the third quarter. They had stayed attached. And then the reason that I'm going to say for the today, for the moment, not for the long term, the story is OKC winning, is because OKC won the way they won all year, which is in a very similar but totally different way that the Warriors, even pre-KD, but certainly with KD, you would feel like you were close. You might even be leading at halftime. And then you just knew there is going to be a moment in the third quarter where in 90 seconds, the Warriors hit 4 threes. It's a 12-2 run, and the game has flipped. OKC, all year long, had an air of inevitability that they were going to do something similar with their defense. And that is exactly what they did from the end of the third quarter through a few minutes into the fourth quarter when they turned a 4-point lead into a 21-point lead thanks to a 19-2 run. Or it might have been 21-4, whatever it was. They outscored them by 17 over a 7-minute stretch through defense. They had 4 steals and blocks. The Pacers were 1 of 11 from the field. OKC won that game through their defense. My favorite stat of Game 7 of the Finals, DeMonze, OKC shot 40%, Indiana shot 41%. OKC made 11 threes, Indiana made 11 threes. OKC made 22 free throws, Indiana made 22 free throws. OKC had 13 rebounds, offensive rebounds, Indiana had 12 offensive rebounds. So how in the world, given the field goal percentage, threes made, free throws made, offensive rebounds being dead even, was that game a 12-point margin? OKC took 17 more shots than Indiana because they had 14 fewer turnovers. It was the defense and their possession game that won them a championship. And that is also it. There were 2 through lines of OKC's brilliance this year. Shai's consistent offensive performance and the team's overall relentlessness on defense. And that is why they won the championship. Go ahead. Seemed like you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, on the defense,
go ahead.
Do you think the teams will model their teams how OKC has and kind of harp on a good defense?
Well, I think it's easier said than done. I think everybody that knows the league knows you go through all NBA champions, and it is a very, very, very short list of teams that didn't have a great defense. By the way, Victor, I can hear you in at least in my earpiece in the control room. That didn't. So it's a very short list of teams that didn't have a great defense, and it's almost a non-existent list of teams that didn't have a good defense. Now, modeling, so it's one thing to prioritize defense, another thing to have those bodies and have, that personnel. So that part is, I think,
Difficult
easier
to
said
copy.
than done. Right, exactly. What I do think is this OKC team is going to be the standard, not just because they won the championship, but in large part. Every team that thinks they are building a contender is going to ask themselves, how do we match up against this specific team? And by the way, that does happen all the time. Yeah. It's happened with the last 3 champions specifically. When the Nuggets won, everyone's question was, okay, we have to build our team as best as we possibly can, and then we also have to make sure if we face Nikola Jokic, what is our plan? Like, what is our plan for him specifically? Last year, the Celtics won, and the Knicks in the conference said, you know what? What if we just try to build a team to beat Boston? Which they did, by the way. Shout out to them. And now I think teams, particularly in the West, but are going to say, what are we going to do to deal with Oklahoma City? And I do want to, I think sometimes, or some folks I should say, might be hearing this and saying, Nick, you're paying all this respect to OKC now. You picked the Lakers to win the conference, the Lakers to beat them in the conference finals. And I actually think, now the Lakers were flawed for a bunch of different reasons, right? Most notably, the lack of a center, and I think as good of a job as JJ did over the course of the year, rookie head coach in the playoffs, he had some issues. So maybe it wouldn't have mattered. But the reason the Lakers, in my opinion, actually were a tough-ish matchup for Oklahoma City, I think you saw throughout these playoffs. And here's why, Demonte. When the ball is going to be handled for 48 minutes, essentially, by either Luka or LeBron, when those two guys are going to be pulling the trigger on your offense and your decision maker, you're just not going to have those 12 turnover halves that OKC forced on everyone else. Like, you saw their guys on the perimeter, their Dort and Caruso and Wallace and all those guys, their physicality, their strength, J-Dub, their length, bother everybody. Poor TJ McConnell was in hell once he had to play, a full stretch. Haliburton was struggling really throughout the series. You saw what they did to Ant. They made all these guys look like, what's wrong with them? Why aren't they being more aggressive? And just because of the size, Luke and LeBron both being 6'8", and the strength, it wasn't the Lakers were not going to have these repeated 20-plus turnover games, and that was OKC's cheat code. Now, flip side might have been, even without that, the Lakers didn't have anyone who could guard Shai or, consistently guard J-Dub or Chet or whatever, and they would have lost because of that. But it wasn't, when you look back and you say, OKC just rolled through everybody, and at the end of the regular season, in games they seemed to take seriously, the Lakers blew them out one and then were in position to beat them another. Why was that? My answer is flatly because they weren't going to, be able to be as piranha-ish when Luke and LeBron are handling the decision making for the entirety of the game, but it didn't matter. The Lakers couldn't get past Minnesota. The Thunder, meanwhile, very, very unique postseason, DeMonte, in that rounds 1 and round 3 for OKC, no resistance whatsoever. And then rounds 2 and rounds 4, lose game 1, lose game 3, lose game 6, face a game 7, and then kind of control the majority of that game 7. All right, I know you have a bunch more OKC questions, so let's roll through them.
Do you think that they're in a position to keep winning, or will this be more of like a one and done type of situation?
So,
I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to lead into the other follow up, especially with. Do you think that they're going to ref Shai differently next year, as far as the free throws? Like how will that work? Do you think?
No, listen. Now I think Shai will probably get an even friendlier whistle.
Okay.
Now that you are a truly minted super duper star, like if he was getting a friendly whistle before.
What about like Braun? Oh, okay, fair enough. Braun never got a friendly whistle to begin with.
Correct. Yeah,
right.
Here's the thing. The only super duper stars of my lifetime who haven't gotten a great whistle are the guys who refs think, it's a little unfair. Shaq, Bron, Giannis. Like, for real. Shaq, Bron, Giannis, the guys where it's like, well, they can deal with the contact, and those guys are not. Right, and again, I'm not trying to. I know LeBron gets killed for what people call flopping, when it's really like if he gets hit on the head,
it's not gonna hit it. Like he'll go ahead.
He is going to at times, once a foul's been called, or make it seem like he got sniped. But what he doesn't do, and what Giannis doesn't do, and what Shaq didn't do, is there's contact. Let me sell the contact and fall off balance. It's not how they play, and it's not how they should play, because they can play through it. But all the other once you're a super duper star, unless you are just this overwhelming, physically imposing force, you get a better whistle. So I think the whistle at least stays the same for Shai, if not gets better. But what I will say is, as far as the one and done trend, dating back to 2019, not only has no one repeated, no one has made it past round 2 up to thus far in their title defense. The only team, DeMonte, since 2019 to at any point after winning the title even make another conference finals is the Lakers a couple years ago. Everybody thought Denver was going to reel off a bunch. Everyone thought, including, and here is the reason that I really would say just pump the brakes a touch on OKC long term. There were a lot of people, DeMonte, that right now today are saying OKC's gonna, this is the beginning of a dynasty.
Right.
That 6 weeks ago thought we were in the midst of a dynasty for a different team.
Right.
6 weeks ago, they were like, well, listen, Boston is the team to beat. Boston is set up. The only thing that's going to stop Boston is, the newest de facto hard cap and second apron and all that. And by the way, I didn't even tease off top of the show. Obviously, Jrue Holiday traded this morning. We'll get to that shortly. So I do think OKC has real staying power. They have Topic, who was a lottery, maybe a top 5 caliber pick who hasn't played for them yet, who will play for them next year. They have all these draft assets. What prevents you from repeating? Sometimes team gets old. Well, that's not going to happen to OKC. They're incredibly young. Sometimes bad luck, bad matchup. Certainly on the board. You know what I mean? That what happened to Denver last year happens to OKC. where it's like all of a sudden you just run into the wrong team early in the playoffs and they clip you. Rudy Gobert hits a turnaround 12-footer, and all of a sudden your season's over. What happened to Boston this year, sadly, can get you. The injuries. You know what I mean? Like, OKC, while dealing with injuries in the regular season, had perfect health in the playoffs. The other thing that can get you is, and this is a point Wilds has been making, and I think it's a smart one, ownership, more than the players, ownership relaxes because they got one. It's like, well, we got one. So do we need to go deep into the tax? Do we need to do these things? So all of those things, I think, are in play. And the other thing I would say is this. Let's just look at the Western Conference over the next 5 years. If you think OKC is about to go on a real dominant run and say, win the conference 3 of the next 5 years. That's not even win the title. Just win the conference 3 of the next 5 years. So that means in the next 5 years, just for finals appearances, there would only be 2 available for Jokic through the rest of his prime, Luka in his entirety of his prime, essentially with the Lakers, whatever Wemby becomes, this Rockets team that I think is spectacular, Ant with Minnesota, Steph and Jimmy together. Like, there is an element of there's going to be a lot of people left without a seat in the musical chairs of just trying to make a finals, much less win a championship. So, do I think the Thunder are built to have the runway similar to the Spurs with Duncan, who, by the way, Presti was part of building that team, where from 2009 to 2007, that team won 4 championships? I do think they are built similarly. I also think we have to adjust our eyes for what dominance can be in the NBA. Somebody tweeted this, DeMonze, and then I know we have a bunch of follow-ups that we still need to get to, but I thought this was such a unique way to look at it. And this was actually being tweeted in the midst of like a Jordan-LeBron argument, but separate that part from it, and it's just kind of I think, interesting perspective. And it was a very simplistic timeline of, as time goes on in the NBA, the hurdle or the maximum championships possible gets lower and lower. So the person's point was this. The NBA basically starts, what's the most you can win? Well, I don't know. Russell Celtics won 11. So that's the, you know what I mean? There's 8 teams for most of that. The most you can win is basically all of them. Then, next, kind of era of iconic top 10 with a bullet in the GOAT debate players, Kareem and Michael. Kareem the 70s through the 80s, Michael the 80s through the 90s. What's the most you can win? 6 each. Oh, okay, interesting. Then the next iconic guys, Kobe and Duncan. What's the most you can win? They both won 5. And then the next iconic guys, LeBron and Steph, what's the most you can win? They both won 4. So
That's pretty interesting.
So again, it's probably a little too simplistic, but the point being is for Wemby in today's NBA is like the maximum going to be actually 3. That's realistically possible to do. Or is it going to be reset again? Or is it just going to, for Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, Shai, Luka, who, by the way, is the one man of that young top 5 that's, without one. Ant as well, but Ant also hasn't even been to a finals, and I think people think Luka's better than Ant. Is it a race right now? Who can get 2 first? Because that's what it feels like to me. Feels like for Joker, Giannis, Tatum, who sadly is going to have to miss the year, Shai, and Luka, and Luka's behind in that race, obviously. It's who can get their second and kind of take control of this. All right, let's keep going with these follow-ups.
Was there a signature moment in these finals outside of, or that wasn't Haliburton's injury to you?
Yes, I think so. I think Shai's performance at the end of Game 4. That was the fulcrum of the series, where Indiana's up 2-1, they're up 7, and 7 going into the fourth, and Shai's 3 to cut it to 1, and then the Jordan-esque push-off jumper. I thought that was the swing moment of the series.
Okay.
By the way, I was in Miami for that, because that was that Friday night. First things first was in Miami, and the TV in my hotel room was all messed up. Like, I could only watch movies, like the actual channels wouldn't work.
Right.
And I didn't want to watch it on my computer, so I go down to the hotel bar for Game 4 of the finals. I watched the first half in my room on my computer. For the second half, I go down to the hotel bar. There's 2 guys at the bar. One TV is on sports that aren't the finals. The other TV is on a movie with captions. And I'm like, this stresses me out, even though,
how
so
is
I go down.
I'm
Like,
not even
how is
thinking
this
about
possible?
it.
There was a group of guys playing pool. They didn't care at all. And so I say to the bartender, this nice older lady, I'm like, hey, can you put the NBA Finals on? She's like, yeah, of course. So she changes the TV that has sports on it. The other TV, the guy at the bar is intently watching this movie with captions. And she's like, do you mind if we put the finals on? And he gave it I guess. I snapped I was like, I just want to leave. But I didn't want to mix, so whatever. So they put the games on, and then the bartender was great. She was like, I can put the sound on. Would you like that? I'm like, yes, please. Put the sound on. And then the guy to my right, who I think was a Canadian guy, who was he said he was in from Canada. He starts talking to me. He's like, oh, what? And he's talking to me he doesn't know me, which is totally fine. I actually prefer that. But it was what game is it? It was he's not.
What's the situation?
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
he hasn't been paying attention.
Me.
So it's totally, yeah, exactly. And DeMonte, when I tell you, this guy asked me, I think, 4 questions in a row. And I answered all of them.
Annoyed as hell.
I never looked at him. So I'm watching the game, and he's right here, 2 seats over, asking me questions. And I'm like, Tyrese Haliburton, he's kind of, he's this big.
It's your annoying kid asking the 100th question.
Buddy. And he kept, and by the way, the question was not just about basketball. It's where are you from? This type of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm in from New York for work. Oh, what type of work do you do? I was like, oh, I'm in sports TV. Oh, what do you do in sports TV? Sales. Because I'm not like that, which is...
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms right there.
And eventually... And so that's where I was. And so
You watched the whole game there? He stayed...
It's watched the whole game there. And by the fourth quarter, the guys stopped playing pool, and all of a sudden there was a whole communal event of watching. It's Game 4 of the finals. So that at least was the iconic moment for me. All right, let's keep going with these.
So yeah, you weren't really a big Chet guy throughout the playoffs, or you've never really been a big Chet guy. Did his Game 7 performance change your mind at all?
Listen, I think that Chet, I think defensively he was awesome in that game. I think he's a valuable player. I think that he's obviously, I'm going to do King of the Hill on First Things First today. I think we're doing like the top 45 players in the league or whatever. He's obviously on there. But when people thought he maybe should go number 1 in this draft, he profiled as a potential future superstar. And I don't see that for him. That's all. So but listen, that defensive performance in game 7 of the finals and now being a champion at that age, he's minted forever in that regard. But I worry about his ability to stay healthy, and I worry about how he can be pushed around. All right, let's go to Georgie's question Georgie and Alex.
Yeah, Georgie said, is Sam Presti the best in his position in the past 20 years?
I think Pat Riley's got to keep that claim right now as the best kind of team builder. Now, you can say he had some built-in advantages, and it's all, I get that. But in the past 20 years, Pat Riley, a little more than 20 years ago, he drafts Wade, he trades for Shaq, they win a championship. He helps put the big 3 in Miami together. They win 2, they go to 4. He gets Jimmy Butler, they make 2 more finals. I think Pat Riley is the best. Presti, here is the thing about Presti. Does he stay, DeMonte?
What, he's the guy too good for the team?
It's like
I'm done.
I don't know. He did what he went. He accomplished his goal, and I don't know if there were a super marquee franchise that just got bought by an ownership group that has endless money, who, when they bought their baseball team, they went to the small market overachieving Tampa Bay Rays and said, hey, your GM who built this whole thing, what if he came and built our thing with all of our built-in advantages and we gave him a blank check? Will Mark Walters and the Guggenheim Group, who just bought the Lakers, say, hey, Sam Presti, $20 million a year? What's the number? What is it? So, and if you're Presti, is that a fun new challenge? So I think that is a, now that
then
he
would
has
be the best
done
in his
it.
position in the last 20 years, huh? If he goes over there, sets the Lakers straight.
Well, yeah. Well, by the way, Theo Epstein helps the Red Sox break the curse, and then the Chicago Cubs come and get him. There is a history of guys doing it, proving it, and then cashing in. And so that, to me, is a very unique thing to watch over not the next few months, but over the next few years. All right, let's do Alex's comment and then keep it rolling.
Streaming you from the parade. Let's go, champs.
Wow.
Thunder. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Shout
That's
out,
really
Alex.
cool, streaming from the parade. Enjoy the parade. I remember my first championship parade. That was, I know that sounded patronizing. I don't mean it to.
It sounded very patronizing, actually. I didn't know.
I know. I didn't mean it to. I said it like that, and that's not what it's not how I meant it to come out. My point was actually when, I don't know how old Alex is, but the first time one of your teams or your biggest team wins a championship, and that moment, it's just unlike anything else. And the reason I said the first parade is because, let's say the Thunder rip off a Chiefs-esque run, where over the next 6 years, they do what the Chiefs did from 2019 to now. 6 seasons, 5 finals appearances, 3 championships. no parade will be as good as this one. Like, nothing will feel as momentous as that one. And so that's really cool. All right. Before we get to Shai and Haliburton and KD and Jrue Holiday and all the rest, let me tell you guys, hotels in Vegas may be booked solid this weekend, but there's one vacancy left to be filled at UFC 317. A new lightweight champ will be crowned. Grab your own crown at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. Topuria takes on Oliveira, to fill the vacant men's lightweight title, and Alexander Pantoja defends his flyweight belt against Kai Kara France in the co-main event. Who you taking? First time betting on UFC at DraftKings? Just pick something simple, like a fighter to win, and make your pick. That is kind of the easiest way. Just straight winner, but you don't have to necessarily decide by submission or knockout or anything. Just straight winner. It can be that easy. And if you're new to DraftKings, check this out. New customers who bet $5 will get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code WRIGHT, WRIGHT. That's code WRIGHT for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, DeMonte, let's talk Shai.
So the season has ended. SGA has gotten the scoring title, the MVP, the title, and finals MVP. So Kareem, MJ, and Shaq are the only folks that have done that. Where does this put SGA statistically? Would you say that he has a case of being the best ever? Or having the best season, sorry.
Yeah, no, I knew what you meant. The best season ever. No. It's not, and to be honest, I don't think this is, as far as individual seasons guys have had, I don't think this is one of the 10 best individual seasons any single player has had. I think that stat that you just read gets warped a bit by the scoring title piece of it. So, because the reason it is so kind of unique or difficult or hard to do, everything you just listed, was because typically the scoring title, the guy who scores the most points is not on the best team, or isn't his team's not the champ. But there have been plenty of guys that have had unbelievable seasons, I think better seasons than SGA this year, that just didn't win the scoring title, right? So I would argue that Steph in 2015, even though I think he only averaged 24 points a game, that was a more impressive individual season than Shai this year. I think there have been a bunch of LeBron seasons, most notably the 2 championship seasons in Miami, both of which he won league MVP, won the title, won finals MVP, that were more impressive than Shai this year. I think that Joker 2 years ago had a better season than Shai this year. And so now again, I'm not trying to blow out Shai's candle, but the scoring title, MVP title, finals MVP, quadfecta, and it only being done by Kareem in 71, Shaq in either 2000 or 2001, Jordan 4 times, shout out MJ, and SGA is noteworthy, but maybe a little misleading when you talk about the most impressive seasons in NBA history. What I will say is this. I do think best seasons start to finish by a guard in NBA history. I think only Michael, Magic, and Steph have definitive definitively, without a doubt, had better ones than Shai this year. There's an argument for Kobe 09. There is an argument for Isaiah 89. There is an argument. Is there anyone I'm leaving out when I say? I mean, there's, again, Michael, Magic, Steph, definitely. There's an argument, sorry, folks, for Kuzi 57. There is. Look it up. And is there any recent guard that I'm forgetting? What I'm trying to do there is the box that has to be checked is led your team to a championship as the clear, uncut, unquestioned best player. Team was awesome start to finish. You put up great numbers on your own.
Jason Tatum. Sorry.
He's not a guard.
Yeah,
he's not a guard. And Tatum last year wasn't better than Shai this year. I don't think you think that. No,
that's fair.
So that's the thing. That's why it's most of the guys who lead teams to championships are wings or bigs over the course of NBA history. They're not true guards. So Nash obviously never did it. Kidd never did it. The argument
in 06,
here's the thing
what you're saying?
About Wade in 06. I think this year was definitively better than Wade in 06 because Wade in 06 he was not, I don't think he was definitively, was he definitively the best player on the Heat in the regular season that year? That's the question I have. And maybe he was. Shaq had been the best player the year before. That year, D-Wade was 20. I just looked it up. D-Wade, it's weird though. D-Wade was 27 a game, and Shaq was just 20. But All-NBA, Shaq was first team and D-Wade was second team. So who were the guards for All-NBA? Oh, Kobe and Nash. Okay. So no, this was better than D-Wade 06. But the only guys who, again, Steph 15, and people can argue with me about Steph. They're like, he didn't even win Finals MVP. What he did with that Warriors team was so incredibly unique. Steph 15, Jordan a handful of times, Magic a handful of times, are the only guard years that I can say are hands down better than this Shai year. Kobe 09, you can argue, and Bob Cousy 1957, you can argue, were better than this Shai year. And any other guard year, I guess you can argue 06 Wade, but it's tough. When one guy wins league MVP and the other guy is second team All-NBA, it's hard to argue Wade had a better year that year. And so that to me is where it ranks kind of historically. And so
fourth or fifth?
Go ahead.
My fourth or fifth.
Yeah, fourth or fifth. Let's go to the what Max said here.
He said if SGA wins Finals MVP, he should be ranked higher all the time than Giannis. His career is almost over. It's downhill for him from here.
So that was a comment from our previous.
I was about to say that looks familiar.
I think that's correct. So first of all, Giannis is 30. So a career almost over, I think, is bananas to say.
Got 4 more good years, right? 4 or 5.
Giannis, Shai turns 27 in 2 weeks. Giannis is 30. So Shai obviously is younger than Giannis, but it's not it's not Steph versus Shai age-wise, much less LeBron versus Shai age-wise. So I think that's crazy. If what you're saying is you think Shai ultimately will finish higher than Giannis in the all-time rankings. I suppose that's possible. If what you're saying is Shai already is above Giannis in the all-time time rankings, I would say you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
That's what
it's
he's
not
saying,
even close.
Okay,
well, he's wrong.
That's definitely what he's saying.
That's fine. He can say that, but people can say a lot of things. It's not even a debate, and it's not even close. And it's not even something, to be honest, like it's worth what. So you think Shai right now, this moment, is the 15th greatest player in NBA history? Like, give me a break. Like that's just stupid. But now if you think they're about to reel off a bunch and that he's going to keep this level up and 3 straight first team all NBAs and 3 straight years scoring 30 plus and 3 straight years being in the MVP conversation, fine. Like I'm fine with that, but the rest of it is
Wait.
I mean, go ahead.
Did you say Luka was top 20? He said I just heard
Luka
again.
No, so the producers, I need the producers to do a better job of figuring out when one of those tangents makes sense or when we're 45 minutes into the show and we're on the second topic. But when I did my top 50 players of the last 50 years, I put as a placeholder at 20 Luka for the same reason that I thought when the original list came out, they put Shaq in, despite all he had done was make and lose a finals up to that point, because they knew he's clearly going to be a top 20 player, top 50 player of all time. So let's put him in there. I then went back a year later and years ago and said, I'm glad I put Luka there because I don't have to reorder the list to just replace him with Joker, who had earned that actual spot of, at the time, right around 20th. Now he has moved up. So, yes, all of those things did happen. Does that have anything at all in any possible world relation to if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is better than Giannis? It does not. And again, to be clear, if you think Shai's better than Giannis right now, I actually don't think that. I think the best players in the world go Joker 1, Giannis 2, Shai 3, Luka 4. I think that's the fair ranking of it, with Tatum being off the board due to the Achilles. But to say Luka's Shai's had a better career than Giannis is an absurdity. All right, let's talk Haliburton.
Tyrese Haliburton tried to play through that injury, obviously tore his Achilles. You commended him on First Things First for playing through that. Is his injury in Game 7 the single biggest story of the finals? Or the playoffs included?
No, I don't think so. The story has to be the champion, but the most memorable piece of this is his injury. And so I said almost all of this on TV, but I want to reiterate it here. It's 2 things. One is, I am not going to run from or pretend that after Game 6, I didn't have real questions.
No,
I definitely. Hold on. That didn't happen. I at no point did I call him soft.
No, you didn't call him soft, but you were like, if you're moving around, like you got to play. And 100%.
Well, and what I said was he didn't look hurt.
Right.
That it seemed like it was. I said that for a guy to have a calf strain and supposed to be out a month or a few weeks, which is what the reporting was,
he was pretty mobile.
To injure it and then play after the injury in game 5, played 27 minutes after the injury. And then in Game 6 was awesome. I said, is unlike any calf strain I've ever seen. Now, I actually was watching Game 7 with some active NBA players. And when it happened, everybody all reacted the same. But I just said, I was like, if it was that close to tearing, how did he move like that in game 6? And what one player in particular said to me said two things that I thought were fascinating. He said, in our league, the calf strain is the new torn MCL, like a scary precursor of a potential devastating injury. And the other thing they said was, the calf strain, it's not like a hamstring where when it happens, you just simply can't
Stay
move
off
as well.
It. Right.
But it's that he's like, with a hamstring or a groin, you can see that impact it has because of how NBA players move. They can't move as well. They're like, with a calf, you can move a lot of times like okay, and you won't see it. But the only way to get it, to heal it, is to stay off it.
Right.
He was like, it has, if you get a calf strain, it's got to be what he told me was 3 or 4 weeks of nothing, of just flatly staying off it, or else you risk that. And so, I didn't know that. And so when I saw Hallie moving around like he was in game 6, like the timeline of my Haliburton takes were game 5, and DeMonte disagreed with me on it. I didn't really cut him a lot of slack for a 0 field goal, 0 for 6 performance because he was playing. And in game 6, he was so fluid and so good, I thought, okay, like he's, dodged a bullet here. Of course he's going to play game 7. Of course he was going to play game 6. And then in game 7 minutes in, he tears his Achilles. So all that happened, right? And people can judge it however they want. Like, that's fair is fair. Here is my updated, if you will, opinion that maybe people will judge this as well. It's good that he played. He was supposed to play. He wanted to play. And he took a risk that he was supposed to take. When you, and people were like, well, it cost him and them all of next year. If the goal of team sports is to win a championship, games 6 and 7 of these NBA finals, DeMonte, had more championship equity attached to them than next season in its entirety for the Indiana Pacers. Like, when you are that close, like, those games are worth more in your chance to win a championship than the entirety of next season. They just are. And
your mindset,
the goal, like, your mindset, and also just for your teams, like for the Pacers, what Haliburton's performance in game 6 and even just the 5 minutes of game 7 added more to the Pacers' championship probability than him having a full All-NBA season next year. Because even if that happens, like, you still have to get through the whole tournament and get there. And so they were there. So the only and qualifier I think that one would put on it is, yes, that's all true. The goal of team sports is to win a championship, but the goal of anyone in what they do for a living is to make a living for them and their family. So if Tyrese Haliburton were in the final year of a rookie contract and hadn't been, re-signed, then you do have to do some personal math on what this means for me and the people I care about and all of that. But when you are Tyrese Haliburton and you are in the first year of a 5-year, $250 million contract. And you can play and play well through the injury while risking catastrophe, which is what happened. Playing is the right thing. He made the right call. It went terribly for him, but he made the right call. And by the way, I said this on TV yesterday, and then he today or last night tweeted this. Well, tweeted a lot, but one of the things he wrote is the following. I'll just read you the whole thing. Man, don't know how to explain it other than shock. Words cannot express the pain of this letdown. The frustration is unfathomable. I've worked my whole life to get to this moment, and this is how it ends. Makes no sense. Your heart breaks. Like, for real. Now that I've gotten the surgery, I wish you could count the number of times people will tell me I'm going to, quote, come back stronger. What a cliche, LOL. This shit sucks. My foot feels like dead weight, fam. But what's hurting most, I think, is my mind. Feel like I'm rambling, but I know this is something I'll look back on when I'm through this as something I'm proud I fought through. It feels good to let this shit out without y'all seeing the kid ugly cry. At 25, I've already learned that God never gives us more than we can handle. I know I'll come out better on the other side of this, a better man and a better player. And this is the part that speaks to what I was saying. And honestly, right now, torn Achilles and all, I don't regret it. I'd do it again and again after that to fight for this city and my brothers for the chance to do something special. And he goes on from there. And everybody, people can check it out on Twitter. That's right. That's right. And the point I made at the top of the show that Brew made yesterday that I think is worth revisiting is I always go back to that quote. It's from the guy who wrote The Road. Who wrote The Road? The Road author. Cormac McCarthy. And the quote is, never underestimate the awful luck that your bad luck saved you from. And that to me is like a very, from like a mental well-being standpoint, a very useful quote that for me as a parent, it has helped me a ton. The only really tough instance in my life since I've started really kind of leaning on that kind of mind frame that didn't help at all with was last year when our friend passed, because there's no like silver lining to that. There's not like, oh well, because the sudden death of a friend is, it's as rough as it gets. But I had some, anything bad that's happened to a loved one, I've tried to use that as a silver lining, or bad that's happened to me. And when I bring it up with Haliburton is this: the road not taken for Haliburton is don't play. Keep the Achilles intact. And for the rest of your career, wonder, what if? And did you let your teammates down? Did you let the city down? Was that would you have gotten through it without getting hurt? Did you leave your championship on the board? And when I say never underestimate the awful luck your bad luck saved you from, would that DeMonze have changed him fundamentally as a player? A guy whose rep for this postseason was the most cold-blooded assassin at the end of games. Would that decision tree have altered him? And while his Achilles would have been intact, would have changed him forever. Maybe. Absolutely maybe. So I think that he clearly made the right decision, even though it was a tragic decision. And we can, listen, remind me, because I want to get to the KD and the Jrue Holiday stuff. Remind me for Thursday's show, we need to discuss the Eastern Conference next year. Now that you have so many of these teams just removed from contention, and we need to discuss why the Achilles injury has become what it is. So we'll do that on Thursday's show. Real quick before we get to Durant and Jrue Holiday, this is a message that applies to 99% of you listening right now, because that's how many of you can be covered by fast and reliable service on the Boost mobile network with 99% nationwide coverage. And if you don't think you deserve a deal, listen up. You got another thing coming right now. When you switch to Boost Mobile, you can get iPhone 15 with Dynamic Island and a 48-megapixel main camera for $99.99. That's $99.99 for iPhone 15 on a nationwide 5G network. This may only apply to 99% of you, but I am 100% positive Boost Mobile just gave all of us a really good freaking deal. In-store offer, $35 device setup fee may apply. Requires credit qualification, ID verification, and activation on $60 plans. Taxes extra. 5G speeds not available in all areas. All right, DeMonte, let's get to Kevin Durant.
He's headed to his fourth team in 4 years. Is that correct? Third team in 4 years. Sorry, third team. The Rockets, even they borrowed your strategy to land him that you pitched on your show.
I mean, it was my exact trade. Just to be clear, everybody was throwing out, do they have to include Jabari Smith? Do they have to include Tyrese? And the trade that I put out on First Things First that was roundly mocked was Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and Phoenix's 2027 first going back to Phoenix. The trade that just happened was Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and Phoenix's 2025 first going back to Phoenix, plus some second rounders. It was the exact 100% trade. And for the record, the trade that I put out there for the Timberwolves to offer was Gobert, DiVincenzo, and Dillingham for Kevin Durant. What was reported today was the trade the Timberwolves offered was Gobert, DiVincenzo, Dillingham, and 1 first-round pick for Durant.
All these GMs just got first.
I'm not trying to infringe on Bill Simmons' territory of the Picasso of the trade machine, but some are saying the torch has been passed. Some are saying it. Like, you just go and check the archives of what the actual teams were offering and compare them to all the trades I came up with on First Things First and see what other people were describing on their platforms and just, let history be the judge. All right, but go ahead. Sorry about that.
Since his injury in 2019, he's won a grand total of 2 playoff series. Do you think the Rockets, it does sound like you think the Rockets are a real contender, or do you think they'll end up like previous teams that he's ended up landing on, like Nets or the Suns?
So listen, it's different situations, right? The Nets, he was unbelievable in 2021 postseason with the Nets. Unbelievable. Lost a historic series to Giannis. Giannis goes on to win the title. Since then, nothing's gone right. And the Suns never were going to be a contender. It was a terribly built team. It was him and Booker and Beal never made sense. And listen, KD is older. He's not the defender he once was. And his injury concerns are real. With that said, DeMonte, I think that right now, this moment, I'd pick the Rockets to win the West. Now, that might change, most notably if the Lakers are able to handle their center situation. But your starting five is going to be Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith, Alperen Şengün. Off the bench, you are going to have Terry Eason, Steven Adams, who we saw Adams and Şengün play really well in that two big lineup, Cam Whitmore, and Reed Shepherd, who was a top 5 pick last year that is a sniper from 3, and that Udoka just didn't play because he couldn't defend and was a rookie. So now you go from a team that didn't have shot making, that has Kevin freaking Durant and potentially Reed Shepherd getting minutes. They are deep. They are well coached. They are great defensively. Jalen Green was an abomination in the playoffs. Now Kevin Durant steps in for him.
There was a trend. It was Haliburton. I forget the other guy. But I mean, what if Jalen Green turns out to be a star? Like, if he just needed a little bit of a trackway, and he just ends up being, KD, he's like 36 years old.
He's 37. I am not a Jalen Green believer.
I know.
So I am.
Oh, it was SGA. It was Haliburton and SGA. Those are the two players because they traded him for old stars. It was Paul George, I think. For
okay.
SGA.
Yeah, I got you. So I think Jalen Green is a bit of an empty calories guy. He's a decent shooter, not a great shooter from threes. 35% last year, 34% for his career. He's not that efficient outside of his threes. He's 42% last year and the year before and the year before that. And I don't love when my young players aren't showing market improvement. Year 2, Jalen Green, 22 a game. Year 3, 20 a game. Year 4, 21 a game. So I certainly don't see what Phoenix is like. Phoenix is just like they have 100 guards and nothing else, but they don't know what they're doing. That's fine. It is a short-term bet for sure, DeMonte, but it's a short-term bet that I think could net them a finals. Now, for Durant, his last 6 years in Oklahoma City, made 4 conference finals and 1 NBA finals. His 3 years in Golden State, obviously made all 3 conference finals, made all 3 NBA finals. He then leaves there and, as you mentioned, has won 2 series total and not been out of round 2. I would love to see Kevin Durant with one more deep playoff run. I would love to see Durant remind people how great he still is, because he is, man.
And I love that he went to the Rockets, the team that the the Rockets couldn't get over Golden State. KD's like, I'm gonna go over there and help you guys. Screw Draymond Green.
And here's the other thing: the Rockets couldn't get over Golden State, and who are the Rockets trying to get over now? Oklahoma City, KD's old team. And so there is some nice kind of storylines there.
Right.
I think it's a perfect fit. And they didn't give up too much. They kept their depth. They kept their flexibility. I think, oddly, they actually still, if he were to come available mid-season, might have the ability to still trade for Giannis. And like that, I don't think that's off the board.
Who are you saying trade for Giannis?
The Rockets.
The Rockets?
Yeah, I can try to do this on the fly real quick, and then we're gonna have to move on. But I think we can make the salaries work because so let me turn this off. Fred VanVleet is 44 million. Giannis is 54. So if you were to send, for instance, Fred VanVleet, Reed Shepherd, let me just see if that works. So the salaries, I believe, Fred VanVleet and Shepherd work, and then Houston would have to include all the Phoenix picks that they have 2029 and 2027, the Brooklyn pick that they have in 2027. Like, you could make a trade that is, if you're the Rockets, where you are sending out Fred VanVleet, Reed Shepherd, and the following picks. You could send them what picks would they probably want? Yeah, there we go. You could send them, if I'm reading this properly, Fred VanVleet, Reed Shepherd, and Brooklyn's first in 2027, Phoenix's first in 2027, Dallas's first in 2029, Phoenix's first in 2029, and Houston's first, their own first in 2030. Those are valuable, prime first-round picks, and so my point is, I don't think they're going to do that. But the point is, it's not like by going for Durant, they punted on any chance at Giannis. And I think that's very useful. All right, DeMonte, let's do Jrue real quick. Oh, tell me what Danny said before we move on.
Danny asked, since you have ties to Houston, are you going to take a Broussard-like approach and claim Houston as a team you're rooting for this season? Definitely you will.
I did 100%. Not even think of that. But you're right. Brew does the whole, I lived there, I did this. I lived in Houston for longer, I bet, than Brew lived in Indianapolis. I lived in Houston for 5 years. DeMonte considers himself from Houston. My daughter was born in Houston. Like, maybe. That's an interesting one.
I definitely think you will end up rooting for them actively throughout the season. I mean, it'll be Lakers and then it'll be Rockets.
I like the idea. All right, let's do Jrue Holiday.
Celtics traded away Jrue Holiday for Anthony Simons, in 2 second-rounders. What do you think this signals about Boston and the state of the
Listen, I think other people like Simons more than I do. He is, to me, in a similar Jalen Green mold, kind of an empty calories player, except he is a much better, I think he's a much better
defender,
three-point shooter.
Oh.
No. I don't think he's a defender at all. But let me check his three-point percentage. He's not much. He's 38% for his career, but that's a big difference, 34 to 38. But he shoots a ton of them. And, Boston wants to shoot threes. But this was a salary move. The Jrue had 3 years left on his deal. Simons has 1 year left on his deal. Jrue also makes $5 million more, which actually cost the Celtics $40 million in tax. So this was the first of, and he's obviously much older. I don't totally understand the move for Portland. My guess is part of the value they see in Jrue is kind of teaching Scoot what his best version of himself can be and how to be a pro and all that. And for the Celtics, we knew they were going to have to slowly but surely get off salary, and now they're doing that. And I don't think they're done. Now, I don't think Jaylen Brown is getting traded. I do think they are going to try to move Kristaps and kind of treat next year as a bit of a reset year. And you won't miss Kristaps. I know you'll miss Jrue.
I like Kristaps a lot, and I like Jrue. Miss him, but yeah, Kristaps. We should try to get whatever assets we possibly can at this point.
Right, and to reset the money and do all that in a year that's probably going to be a lost year. And listen, the Holiday trade was an all-time great trade for Boston. They don't win the championship last year if they don't have Jrue Holiday, in my opinion. He's He's a two-time champion. He's a great player. The only two-time champions of the post kind of KD Warriors are now Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso, and Jrue Holiday. How about that? Isn't that unbelievable? Like three guys who were considered expendable by their initial teams and then went on and won another championship. I don't think this is a groundbreaking trade, but I think it's what Boston had to do. And I think getting Simons, who's young and cheaper and will bomb threes next year, for a team, and then they'll probably just let him walk for nothing to help reset their books, is about as good as you could do. All right, NBA draft real quick before we get to some listener questions.
So the draft is tomorrow, very hasty. It sounds like it's going to be Flagg, Harper, and Edgecombe, but we'll see on that.
Yeah.
What are you excited to see tomorrow?
How far does Ace Bailey drop? Is the draft starts at 3 with my guy Daryl Morey and the Sixers, and are they going to take Edgecombe? Are they going to consider including that third pick in a trade? And on the draft, we will be live on YouTube during the draft, kind of a second screen thing, if you guys would potentially like to join us. A reminder for everybody to like, rate, subscribe, review, all of that. And now let's do some listener questions to Monze.
Let's see. Good game, bro. Collabing with YouTubers and Twitch streamers. Say less, Nick.
That's a YouTube. Evidently, that's a YouTuber with 250,000 followers. Interesting. All right, add him to the potential list. With again, I don't really know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure something out. All right, let's let's go through some more.
Diego asked, "Did you chase your losses on Bet of the Year by betting on OKC Game 7?"
I did not. But I luckily. I was in a very, very good, not even a variant of poker, I suppose, game this weekend. And it covered a lot of my Vegas and Bet of the Year losses. And in fact, I probably should say, just because DeMonze knows what I won, and if I say it just covered a lot of the losses, then he might wonder, how much did you lose? It covered all the losses. Now it doesn't put me way ahead over the last month, but it puts me comfortably ahead. And so that was good. All right, next.
Scott asks, given how badly things have gone in Phoenix, will the NBA create an Ishbia rule, maybe trade restrictions in an owner's first full season?
Well, yeah, I mean, I said it. That's funny. I said that on the TV show a year ago, that I thought there was potentially going to be some type of, his legacy is going to be, a rule's going to be named after him, like Ted Stepien, where you have to prevent, save owners from themselves. All right, DeMonze, Eric is giving us a rec league update. You guys lost?
Yeah, so, hey, I was hoping we could. Yeah, we did lose. We lost in the first. We lost in the first game of the playoffs. It was one of the better days of this month. But yeah,
why is it one of the better days?
I love, it was awesome, the cardio and everything. Everybody, we all need to go our separate ways, and we need to come back after this next season. It just seemed like these other teams have played together for so long, and but all the games are close. Like, we were never getting blown out. It was just like late game situation, I think, because at the most we had 2 subs. So, but yeah, we are out of the playoffs, but we will see you in what's summer. We'll see you in fall, Eric, and hopefully we're getting Mixie in it, and we'll be there in the postseason. But
all right, sounds good. The producer said they found a picture of me at the bar in Miami, so that's interesting. I'm curious what that's gonna. Is that Lefko? That looks like Adam Lefko. Oh, AI random guy looks like Adam Lefko. How about that? All right, like, rate, subscribe, review, do all that. We will see you guys Wednesday night for the live draft show. I got to go do Colin. Talk to you guys later. What's right?